Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, and this is a special Saturday podcast. To note the somewhat dramatic developments that have taken place overnight. In podcast after podcast, we examine the issue of will he, won't he, will he, won't he, will Trump attack, won't Trump attack? Well, now we have an answer. And the United States and Israel launched a massive attack on Iran. Not surprising. I mean, I think it was really on the cards given the armada that was arrayed against Iran. Um, Now, the Trump announced this on a special video message. No speech before the nation. He just recorded a video message, and let's just watch a little bit of
Amazing.
the message that he recorded. Here it is.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people.
No geopolitical thinking here.
Directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States.
I think it's a one should note that when it comes to casualties, if you're going to start weighing the casualties of inflicted on the United States and casualties inflicted on Iran, the United States inflicted far more casualties on Iran than vice versa. The United States sponsored that war launched by Saddam Hussein
Right.
in 1979, which went on through to 1988. So the United States sponsored that, armed Iraq, and it was devastating. I mean, we've heard from our friend Professor Morandi, who actually fought in that war, how terrible it was, the poison gas and everything. So if you're going to start counting who really suffered at the hands of whom, the United States is definitely on the upside of that ledger.
And it's very hard to quantify here, but what about the sanctions, George? What
Yes,
about the
exactly.
lack
That's
of
that's
medicines,
another thing.
the
Absolutely.
technology?
Yes.
We may never know that, though I think it's fair to assume that there are casualties in that category.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's an excellent point. Exactly. The sanctions that have been unremitting for those 47 years.
Well, and I will go as far as to say that the innocents that were killed during the riots at the start of this year is on America's hands as well.
Right.
Troops and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran.
Oh God, here we go.
Well, here we go. This is
Here we go. Yeah.
so insane because you're talking about events I mean, that's 2 generations ago. You can't discuss events going on now by referring to some grievances from 2 generations ago, because then, well, let's go back one more generation and the overthrow of Mossadegh.
In
I don't normally
1953.
do that. I get very tired when people bring that
Yeah.
up. But if you're going to bring this up, then you can absolutely bring that up.
Is there a clear and present security threat? No.
Yeah,
So I'm not interested in your history.
right,
Sorry.
right. That's right. Let's go on for a little bit more.
Dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American.
Another myth. There's no evidence of that at
Yeah,
all.
yeah, that's right. That's right. And so there's the issue, what exactly was the United States
Yeah.
doing in Lebanon? Well, they were trying to sponsor an Israeli stooge government in Beirut. I mean, it's understandable. Iran or whoever, Syria, were not very happy about, creating an Israeli stooge government in Beirut.
And were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died.
Oh,
USS Cole, that's an interesting one.
yeah. Wow. Again, Iran is being equated with Al Qaeda. Again, again.
Interestingly enough, Trump on his Truth Social feed posted an article written by John Solomon on, just the news or whatever it's called, claiming Iran interfered in the 2020 and 2024 elections. So you're bringing that up. The 2020 and 2024 elections. No evidence is provided here. And I don't even know how Iran can actually interfere in
Yeah.
in U.S. elections. But nonetheless, hey, Trump now brings that up. So we've got the USS Cole, the 2020 election.
What about the attempt on his life? Remember, there was, that story.
That's that's right. Yes. Oh yes. Iran was yeah. Uh,
killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces.
What was the United States doing in Iraq?
exactly. Remember, this is the man who rode to power in 2015, 2016, condemning that war in Iraq, condemning, the George W. Bush war. What a complete waste of U.S. resources it was. Remember those $7 trillion. Sometimes it was $8 trillion. Sometimes it was 7 trillion, or $8 trillion. It was wasted on Iraq. So now you're bringing that up, that somehow Iran wasn't terribly happy about the U.S. forces in Iraq that were always likely to turn against Iran.
In recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels and international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer. From Lebanon to Yemen and Syria.
Now, what's interesting about this, as he rants and raves like this, leave aside that none of this has anything to do with the campaign that he ran in 2024. A long campaign. He never said any of this then. But you're bringing up all these grievances, and you sound like Mark Levin. You sound like the most unhinged, worst fanatical Israel firsters in the United States.
And so far, I can't see that the time.
We're very early in there. We're not going to listen to
No,
it.
no. What I wanted to say is that we still haven't heard the word Israel. Well, as you stopped it, he was starting to go across the Middle East, where apparently Iranian terror has been delivered, but Israel is terrorizing the Middle East.
Right. Yes. Yes. That's right. I was going for a little bit more.
The regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts. And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage.
So Iran is behind October 7th. Okay, good.
Yes. Interesting. If Iran was behind it, why didn't Iran do more to support Hamas? Could have done.
Like the Houthi.
Exactly. It didn't. No, there's no evidence for any of that. No evidence that Iran supported, that there was any kind of a coordination between Iran and Hamas. I would have thought the evidence would be against it. Iran is very, very cautious, and would have almost certainly, had they been consulted, told Hamas, this is not a good move. This is going to lead to absolute disaster.
If there were evidence, it would have been everywhere. Shown to us.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like the world has never seen before. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in
I'm very curious when he recorded this.
last June.
What was that?
I'm curious when he recorded this. We
Yeah.
don't know when.
Right.
Okay.
No, it isn't clear. Now, as we don't have to listen to all of it, but as he goes on, he essentially calls on the Iranian people to overthrow their government, and he says, "You're never going to get a chance like this." So basically, he basically says that you're never going to get a chance like this. And it, one has to say though, this is the most unprovoked attack that's happened in my lifetime. I mean, we can think about analogies, obvious historical analogies, but in my lifetime, I don't remember anything as blatantly unprovoked as this.
Well, would you roll in this the 12-day war into this?
Yeah, I would.
Okay, I agree. I agree with you completely. If we roll them together, absolutely. Yeah.
That's right. Because, and this is why it's interesting to discuss, is that it's clear that in the negotiations, Iran had given the United States everything it had wanted on the nuclear issue, far more than we had even thought. And that's why it's worth taking a look at this interview given by Oman's foreign minister, the mediator in the talks in Geneva, to CBS Face the Nation, in which he basically outlined what Iran had agreed to. He's the mediator. He said, this is what Iran had agreed to. And he went public with that. This is what Iran has agreed to. So let's just listen to this.
That they have never done before. Can you give us any sense?
The single most important achievement, I believe, is the agreement that Iran will never, ever have a nuclear material that will create a bomb. And this is, I think, a big achievement. This is something that is not in the old deal that was negotiated during President Obama's time. This is something completely new. It really makes the enrichment argument less relevant because now we are talking about zero stockpiling. And that is very, very important because if you cannot stockpile material that is enriched, then there is no way you can actually create a bomb, whether you are rich or not rich. And I think this is really something that has been missed a lot by the media, and I want to clarify that from the standpoint of a mediator.
So explain that. So the enriched material, the things that could be used as nuclear fuel for a bomb, you're saying Iran would not keep on their own soil?
They would give it up.
They would give it up?
They will not be able to actually accumulate that material that will enable them to create a bomb. There's no accumulation. So there will be zero accumulation, zero stockpiling, and full verification. That is also equally important achievement, I think, a full and comprehensive verification by the IAEA, which is
Good deal, George?
I think so.
I think so.
I think so. And I think
so.
he goes on here. Not only IAEA inspectors, Iran was willing to concede to American inspectors, separately, American inspectors, not just IAEA inspectors.
This file.
The UN nuclear watchdog. So you're saying all enriched material would be shipped someplace else, not Russia, but
the current stockpiles that still exist.
The things that are still in Iran.
I think that there is agreement now that this will be downblended to the lowest level possible,
Okay.
to a neutral level, a natural level, which means, and converted into fuel. And that fuel will be irreversible.
That would be significant
It
if
is
Iran
very
agreed to that,
significant. It is very significant, and I think we have agreement on that, in my view.
in your view.
Yes.
Because today, CBS confirmed a confidential report from the IAEA says inspectors report seeing Iran conducting regular activity at bombed uranium enrichment sites. But Iran has refused to tell us what has happened to their stockpile. They have refused to allow UN inspectors in to look at it. Are you telling me that inspectors would be given access to these sites, like at Isfahan?
If there is a deal, an agreed deal, there will be full access.
Iran has offered that.
Yes.
So who would these inspectors be? It would be UN, IAEA?
But I think, there is room also, if there is a deal in place. I am quite confident from my point of view.
George, can you stop it for a sec?
Mm-hmm.
Inviting the IAEA back in, that's a tough one for them to swallow.
It's a tough one.
Pointed out.
It is a tough one, but as he goes on, they're also prepared to have American inspectors, he says here.
That even United States inspectors will have access at some point in the process, if we have a deal that is respected and fair and endurable.
All right. So it was just worth looking at.
A pretty reasonable guy, huh?
He seems a very reasonable guy.
Yeah.
Now, the reason it's worth looking at that is that there already the lies that are coming from Mark Carney, from Emmanuel Macron, from all the usual absolute worthless scum that who are the leaders of the West, who are claiming that Iran is refusing to negotiate. Iran has refused to make important concessions. Iran is still a threat. And said they said it. That's on their tweets today. That with Carney, Macron, who are claiming that Iran is just absolutely refusing to take these negotiations seriously. There it is. He's the man who's taking the negotiation. He has gone in public and said these are all the things that Iran has agreed to do. So just so we make sure that we're not going to accept any of these lies in the coming days, and we're going to have a lot of that Iran was refusing to negotiate seriously.
Yeah, well, but then, we saw this coming. When you're negotiating, now it's been proven that the U.S. was not negotiating in good faith.
Right.
Okay. It was using the negotiations as a stalling tactic so they could get their assets, as they like to say, in theater. Okay. I mean, this is just, it's just such an affront. Okay.
Right.
I mean, because the stakes are so high.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
And it's something that I got a little bit of heat for some strange reason on Twitter. So why would the Russians talk to the Americans again on negotiations over Ukraine? I wouldn't.
I certainly wouldn't.
But particularly if it's the same two characters.
That's exactly the same two characters. Anyway, obviously at this stage, it's still not clear what is going on. Clearly, U.S. and Israel launched their attacks, but Iran is clearly retaliating. So far, most of the retaliation has been against U.S. bases in the Gulf states. And needless to say, the slimy regime in Riyadh has condemned Iran for attacking Saudi Arabia's allies. Well, they're not attacking Saudi Arabia's allies. They're attacking
military bases.
Exactly. The military bases.
I saw the same thing. It just, come on. Oh yeah. I was just watching Al Jazeera. Oh, you can hear explosions above our studio. Yeah, because there are American bases there. They're not, they're bombing Qatar. No, they're bombing bases in Qatar.
That's right. That's right. And of course, Iran has been condemned for doing that by the EU worthies like Roberta Metsola. Who's Roberta Metsola? Roberta Metsola is one of the leaders of the EU. She's the Speaker of the European Parliament. She's attacked Iran for its aggression against Qatar. Imagine Iran is the aggressor state. It's
So
pressing
Iran gets
Qatar.
attacked. So Iran has no right to self-defense.
No,
Okay.
no.
Look, these people are just Mickey Mouse people. Okay. They're ridiculous. This was all known in advance that once the missiles start flying, and we talked about this yesterday, what is Israel started, and well, it did.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know if it was in unison with the U.S. or what, and we'll find out. But so if you have an American military base in a Gulf country,
You're
you better,
you're you're you're
I hope you got shelters.
you're
Okay.
you're, you're sitting there. Anyway, the most informed story that I've read so far, at least, is on Axios, and in here is their man Barak Ravid, who seems
Again,
to write all of this.
I think there are three or four of them. Okay. Anyway.
I guess I always assumed it would be a much bigger operation. I mean, they make a lot of money. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Bloomberg makes a lot of money, and the people at Axios are from Bloomberg, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's right. Yeah. That's right. But they know how to make money. They were the ones who ran Politico, made a lot of money by selling Politico. So then they started this. Anyway, he says the Israeli Air Force conducted numerous strikes across Iran Saturday morning in an attempt to assassinate Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and other senior political and military leaders. So we don't yet know where, or if Khamenei is still alive.
Well, one of the things I question, again, there's not a lot of precision here. The Israeli Air Force conducted numerous airstrikes across Iran. Did their jets go into Iranian airspace, or did they go up to Iranian airspace
Well,
and launch their missiles? Okay,
well, no,
it's very unclear.
I don't think you need these days. I don't think you need to go into airspace, like into another country's airspace. I mean, you lob your missiles. You can be a long way away when you lob your
Yep,
missiles.
yep.
Yeah, so you don't need to go into
But you
airspace.
see what I mean?
Yeah,
If you don't know that distinction, you're
right,
gonna
right.
think
But I think
something
it's
probably
yeah, that's
different.
Israeli Air Force. But I don't think they would cross. I mean, why would they go into endanger their
Probably wouldn't be a
aircraft
good
by going
idea.
into airspace?
Yeah, probably wouldn't be a good idea.
Yeah. The US and Iran have launched a massive joint military operation in an attempt to destabilize the Iranian regime. And then Israeli officials said the goal is to create all the conditions for the downfall of the Iranian regime, but the development will also depend on the extent to which the Iranian people rise up.
Okay, so everyone, and George and I comment on Axios all the time, but we're going to take this at face value. So it wasn't about a bomb.
No, that's right, and that was even clear from Trump's
Right.
rant. So that yeah, that was just that was all a ruse. But why it's so important to maintain to emphasize that point that it was a ruse that Mark Carney, Emmanuel Macron, and all these European lowlifes who are still pretending that it was all about the bomb. Oh, well, Iran just wasn't willing to make concessions about nuclear enrichment. That as if it's all really about the bomb, when it's clear from what Trump is saying and what Israel is saying that we want to change the regime.
But from what we understand, all of what was called negotiations was about
The nuclear.
enrichment
Yeah.
slash bomb. That's what all of the
All the
discussions were
negotiations have been
about.
about that. Yeah. And yeah, that's right. Anyway, he goes. An Israeli official says Israel is targeting the entire Iranian leadership, political and military, past, present, and future. So even people in the past. And that Khamenei's residence and government compound have been struck. Among those targeted, officials said, the president, Pezeshkian, the IRGC commander, Ahmad Vahidi, Khamenei's top security advisor, Ali Shahmani, and Ahmadinejad. That's a name from the past. So they evidently they're going after
A
Ahmadinejad.
very, very popular figure in Iran. Very
Right, yeah,
popular.
no, people remember him from when, remember when he came to Columbia University and he gave quite an effective talk at Columbia.
Do you know why? Do you know why he's so popular in Iran?
Well, do I?
He's considered very pious.
Hmm.
The rank and file, if you want to put it that way, adore him because of his lifestyle. He's a very pious man, and that is considered such a redeeming element. Okay, no flashiness. He
Right,
lives
right. No,
everyone.
but having said,
They really love him.
yeah, but having said that, I think that he certainly didn't do Iran any favors as far as the rest of the world was
Oh
concerned.
yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah,
he
sure,
was an easy target for
yeah.
the Israel lobby. On the other hand, one has to also say that the ones who were more reasonable, the kind of those who were willing to work with the West, like Khatami, and then I think Hurani, the one who was at the time of the JCPOA, they didn't really get very much. I mean, so in other words, they essentially only provided evidence for the IRGC and for all the sort of radical elements in Iran. Well, it doesn't really matter. You can placate the West. You can be cooperative. They're not going to give you anything. There's no deal to be had. So they got the JCPOA, and how long did that last? That just lasted 2 years. That's it. 2 years. That's all they got out.
Yeah, and very few sanctions were lifted.
Yeah, that's right.
And by what's happened during this day has closed the door probably for a generation or maybe forever in Iran for the so-called reformists.
Right.
That's a dead end
Oh,
now.
that's definitely a dead end. But I mean, obviously, we don't know how this is going to play out. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
this is a big operation that's in hand. And then a senior U.S. official told Axios that American strikes are focused on Iran's missile program and missile launchers, while Israeli strikes are focused on both eliminating senior Iranian officials and targeting the missile program. Israeli officials say they still lack clarity on which Iranian leaders have been killed and that it will take several more hours to assess the results. Iranian officials separately told Reuters that multiple top officials have been targeted. And now, in a video released Saturday morning, Prime Minister Netanyahu. I didn't want to inflict
Thank you, George. Thank you.
Netanyahu on you and other gagglers.
Thank you, George.
And it says, our joint action will create the conditions for the brave Iranian people to take their destiny into their own hands. The moment they say brave Iranian people, that's
Well,
when you.
it's like the McFaul argument, that liberal democracy is it's logical. That's liberal democracy is a state of being which everyone wants to be, and everyone will be there eventually. And I've always kind of, so why are you pushing? If it's inevitable, then why do you have to,
Yeah,
put
right,
your foot on the pedal? Okay. And it's the same thing here, No, Israel, you are trying to determine
right.
the future of the Iranian
Well,
people.
the point is that when you get these condescending compliments, you know they just ooze fraudulence. Brave Iranian people. And Nigel Farage, you remember him? He's supposed to be the next prime minister of the UK. He sent out some tweet talking also condemning Starmer for not supporting this, or at least not actively, allowing UK military basis for this. But anyway, he says the wonderful Persian people. I always love it. The wonder you just love the Persian people. It's like people who love the Russian people.
Yeah.
I just love. I just don't like their government, but I love, love, love
Yeah. Well,
the Russian people.
Farage is, to use one of your more famous phrases, a busted
I
flush.
think he's a busted flush. Yeah, yeah, he's done. He's done. Anyway, to take their destiny into their own hands, and then look what he says. The time has come for all parts of the people of Iran, Persians, Kurds, Azeris, Balukis, and Ahwazis, to cast off the yoke of tyranny and bring about a free and peace-seeking Iran. So
So
in
we're
other
looking
words,
at how many countries? One, two, three, four, at least five, huh?
so he's basically, he's letting the cat out of the bag. You want to
Right.
break this country up. And we've always known this. You want to break them up, try to sponsor all of these different national groupings in order just to, so that this country would cease to exist. Anyway, here is the Omani foreign minister who's kind of been made to look a fool. Says, I am dismayed. Active and serious negotiations have yet again been undermined. Neither the interests of the United States nor the cause of global peace as well are well served by this, and I pray for the innocents who will suffer. I urge the United States not to get sucked in further. This is not your war. And so, all excellent. However, this is the second time he's been made to look a fool. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And then here is Araghchi, the foreign minister. Netanyahu and Trump's war in Iran is wholly unprovoked, illegal, and illegitimate. Trump has turned America first into Israel first, correct, which always means America last. Our powerful armed forces are prepared for this day and will teach the aggressors the lessons they deserve. Well, at least he's still alive.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, the strongest statement has come from Russia, and this is quite interesting because the foreign minister, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, is increasingly taking a very hard line, a much harder line on a number of things than I think is coming from, let's say, the Kirill Dmitriev, who's leading all these negotiations. Lavrov really seems to have become very, very disenchanted with the United States in general and the Trump administration in particular. And here is the statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry. The scale and nature of the military, political, and propaganda preparations preceding this reckless move, including the deployment of a large U.S. military force in the region, leave no doubt that this was a pre-planned and unprovoked act of armed aggression against a sovereign and independent UN member state in violation of the fundamental principles and norms of international law. It is also condemnable that the acts are being carried out again under the guise of a renewed negotiation process ostensibly designed to ensure long-term normalization of the situation around the Islamic Republic, and despite signals conveyed to the Russian side that the Israelis have no interest in a military confrontation with the Iranians. Are you taking seriously signals from from the Israelis? The international community, including the leadership of the UN and the IAEA, must immediately provide an objective and uncompromising assessment of these irresponsible actions aimed at undermining peace, stability, and security in the Middle East. Washington and Tel Aviv have once again embarked on a dangerous adventure that is rapidly bringing the region closer to humanitarian, economic, and quite possibly a radiological catastrophe. The aggressors' intentions are clear and have been declared quite openly to destroy the constitutional order and eliminate the leadership of an undesirable state that has refused to submit to the dictates of force and hegemony. Responsibility for the negative consequences of this man-made crisis, including an unpredictable chain reaction, a spiral of violence, lies entirely with them. All right, so as I say, this is quite a strong statement, and
No lies detected.
that's right, and certainly worlds apart from the pathetic, mealy-mouthed comments from Mark Carney and Emmanuel Macron and all the
Well,
leaders of the.
Kaya Kallas took the day off. She stuck her beak in, but she'll be back to work tomorrow. Don't worry,
Well,
guys.
it's shopping. She's Saturday. She's shopping. Always nicely turned out. She needs to buy some new outfits today. Yeah, so that's it. Now, the reason I bring up Carney and Macron is you remember just a few weeks ago, we were hearing about how Europe and Canada, and particularly Carney, after that big speech at Davos, that there's going to be a new West, a new non-American centric West, and that Carney was going to be the leader of this new West. And there he is on board for this complete
Another busted flush.
another busted flush.
That
And it
that
was always
that,
phony. The
that,
Carney was always
yeah,
phony, and we
it's,
said at the time that this is a fraud. A total fraud is being perpetrated here.
the shelf life was very short,
Very
George.
short. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, that's clearly where we are. Obviously, we're going to know more in the coming hours, and so when we will have more information at our disposal when we next meet. But I mean, the big question is how much does Iran have in the tank? I mean, they're throwing their missiles, but there has to be a limit to how many missiles they actually have.
Well, on both sides too.
Yeah, true, true. But you have to think America and Israel together are much stronger than Iran, so they have a lot more at their disposal than Iran does. So
Well,
Iran,
yeah, but again, it's you know how long can this? In many ways, it's going to be some kind of war of attrition, and it's going to be in the air. But um, but everything is exposed right now, and the stakes are very high. It's regime change. So what if you don't change the regime? Is that defeat?
well, that's a very good question because what's the end game here? When do you
Yeah.
call when do you bring this thing to an end? I guess you bring it to an end. I think the American calculation, I guess, when Iran runs out of ammunition, and then so at that point, Iran would just have to surrender. I mean, I think that must be. I mean, that's the only calculation that makes any sense from what Trump is doing. They're just going to simply say unconditionally surrender. I mean, because there's nothing else. I mean,
Well,
when
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it comes to this issue, the nuclear issue, Iran has already conceded. So what else do you want from Iran?
Well, who's going to surrender if they're going after the leadership?
Oh, I don't know.
That's why
Whoever
everybody.
takes over.
That's why everyone traditionally you don't go after leaders because you need somebody to
Right.
surrender
But I mean, if you think
and
of
someone sorry, someone that has legitimacy to surrender.
right, no, that's right. But I mean, like, if when things of let's say the Third Reich. Now, Hitler had been the leader of the Third Reich. He committed suicide, but he delegated the leadership to Admiral Raeder. It was Raeder who then signed on behalf of Germany the terms of the unconditional surrender. So at that moment, the Allies accepted that Raeder was the legitimate leader of Germany and was therefore empowered to do the unconditional surrender. So in other words, I guess it's whatever happens, they'll find some way to accept whoever signs an unconditional surrender. Not that I'm saying that's going to happen, um, but as far as we can see, what is Trump trying to achieve? It just sounds like an unconditional surrender.
I can't see that far. I just can't. Okay. I mean, um, we learned in the Second World War taught us that bombing doesn't achieve a political
No,
result,
no.
and there's never been the case. Everybody look, when you compare the United States of the 1960s and 70s to Vietnam, and that place they bombed the hell out of that place, and it still didn't work. Okay, so I mean, the only thing I think George and I are the only one we're the only ones that's mentioned it, and it's very vague, obviously, is do they have a pager beeper?
Right.
I mean, because that's the thing I can see that can make some kind of change. I think they got a lot of missiles. Okay, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they got a lot of missiles.
They have, but there still has to be finite. I mean, they
Finite for both
yeah,
sides. For
yeah,
both
yeah.
sides.
But yeah, look, America has more missiles. Has a lot more than Iran. I mean,
Well, I don't know, George. A lot
America's
of
a huge military power.
Yeah, but if you look at what they expended during the 12-day war, a lot of people were very worried about those levels going down dramatic. Like they used up over a quarter of their THAAD missiles. Okay, those are really expensive, and they only make a small number of them a year and all that. That's why I kind of keep pushing back against you a little bit. I mean, and plus, um, uh, Iran, its entire strategy is built on defense. Okay, it's not an offensive
Right.
strategy. So it's there are different calculations. I'm not a military man,
Right.
but
The thing is,
I don't I just don't think
every time
it's
you
just going to be America's just going to bomb 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 and it's over. I think that's
no,
too
I think that's
simple
gonna.
at this
But
point.
yeah, no, I think that's yeah, I agree. If you just bomb, that doesn't do it. But every time you lob missiles, I mean, they've already lobbed quite a number of missiles today, and it's not clear how much damage they've done. Of course, they do have the drones, and drones can do a lot of damage as well, and they get past the missile defense shield. So drones can actually hit their targets and avoid the missile defense. So there is that. But we'll see what Iran really does have. Um, what I think is clear, that at least in these early hours, is there doesn't seem to be very much pushback against what the United States did. I mean that I think that was fairly predictable. There's been no real condemnation, no no full-throated denunciations of an unprovoked attack. It's somehow Iran's fault. That seems to be.
Yeah, I
There's an
did
awful
something
lot of
today.
that kind of talk. It's all Iran's fault.
I did something today anticipating our chat that I usually don't do. And I saw you all over Twitter. Okay. So I saw what George was up to, and I was seeing what other people are up to. And George is right. There are people in our lane. God bless all of you. Okay. God bless all of you. Okay. And we all know each other by name. Okay. We pushed back very, very hard. But you get the normie mainstream. Yeah, it's about time we did this.
Yeah.
No,
Sure.
it really makes me think, George. We think of all the people that we like with their podcasts and their shows and stuff like that. How much impact do we have? Yeah,
Very true. It's very true because even the people, I've got so many views and whatever, blah, blah, it's still minimal. It's just
yeah.
minimal how much impact. Yeah, you've got whatever a few 100,000 views. Doesn't mean that it's those aren't the views of the people who matter, the people who actually make the decisions that
Because we're
matter.
just watching each other.
Exactly, we're watching each other. There are, well, now I'm going to watch this show and that show and whatever, but they're not the people who are in the engine room making these decisions.
Absolutely. No, we cherish our viewers, okay,
Right.
and power to you, and share, okay, and talk about it because I mean, let me throw something to you, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Um, a lot of people, we've kind of phrased this or modeled this as a make or break for the Trump presidency. But I was thinking about it this afternoon. Is it a way to rescue his presidency? I mean, that's a different way of possibly looking at it. You don't have to answer right now because I'm trying to.
Can you explain what do you mean rescue?
Well, because he's in really big trouble, okay, and he needs going back to his very primitive life. He needs a win, and the problem with that is, and that's what George and I and all of our friends have been talking about for weeks right now, is that how do you define a win here? We just did
Right,
regime change, break it up into 5 countries. Who's going to sign the surrender?
right.
I mean, what I find astounding is that, and maybe they have some kind of secret plan. Maybe, we'll
Yes.
see.
Yeah.
But, the shock and awe going into Iraq, just totally destroying the infrastructure of the country. You dismember the Ba'athist regime, the military, the police, and all that. Oh shit! Now it's chaos. Yeah,
Oh
you
yeah.
shouldn't have done that. Okay. I mean,
But
and
but
since
but
everything that
that's a but
hang on, just everything that we've seen in the last few weeks is a repeat of what we saw in 2003. You would think, hey, grab somebody by the collar. Did you make an adjustment this time?
no, I
Exactly.
think I agree with all of that. But chaos is, of course, what the
No.
United States thrives on, because then you have chaos, and then you don't care. because the costs are borne by someone else. I mean, if there's a
And they're
refugee,
just killing each other.
that's right. It's somebody else. Like, well, if there's a refugee flow, well, it's somebody else's problem, not our problem. But let the Europeans, always dump everything on the hapless Europeans. They can deal with the refugee flows. Um, and then, if you've got civil war and and an attempt by whatever government emerges in Tehran to try to restore the country, roughly to what it was, that's going to take years. Not our problem, it's their problem. So it's like, you impose this destruction and then you impose the costs on somebody else. And so you can say, okay, well, that's not a problem. I take your point about, that it could be rescued. What it certainly does do, it ends MAGA. I don't see how MAGA recovers from this. I think that it's just there's no way.
Well, that's an interesting statement.
Because
I'm
because
not
if
sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm there. It ends MAGA. I think before we get there, if it's going to survive in anything that you and I would recognize, it's going to have to make a transition, um, and trying to convince itself that this is American. I know it's a
well
stretch,
well
but I mean, because when you look at, we talked about this whole thing with Venezuela. There wasn't that much pushback.
there wasn't very much pushback, but I think
And maybe this will be totally different. We don't know. But I've hinted this to you a few times over the last 2 weeks or so, is that we would think that, this would be shattering. But it seems like, well, we got to stick with our president, and we don't want the Democrats back. I'm heartbroken. I mean, I was never a MAGA person. I'm
look, okay. I mean,
but I
I
would
think
have thought it would have had a little
no,
bit
but
more
there's
resilience.
a two different things. I mean, if you mean there are his supporters will and many of them will stay with Trump, at least the congressional supporters. I don't know about
So
the
but
voters,
that's
the
not MAGA.
voters, but I think the issue itself just disappears. I mean, the whole point is there was an issue that Trump wrote on, in 2015, 2016, which is, hey, we've been spending all these resources on wars in the Middle East, and generally regime change, neocon wars, and we haven't paid any attention to America's domestic problems. That theme, that's what MAGA, that's JD Vance. Yeah, that's the theme. Now, if you go back, this is another Middle East war. What are you going to say? You can't really go in. Yet another figure's going to emerge in 2028 that says no more Middle East wars. I mean, no one's going to believe that. I mean, it's like,
You you
with these negotiations, what you're again going to say no more Middle East wars?
you can't go 15 seconds on Twitter without the loops of Trump being, his speeches,
Correct.
and then today or whenever he made that recording. Okay,
That's
no,
right.
it's an interesting question because if it's like, I can accept the end of MAGA in the sense that I think we both agree on, and it's just Trump's party, his wing of the party, and that's it. So I mean, so what was this a psych op?
Well, that's like a real question. I mean, and that is, we don't know yet the answer to that. Was this a big con job? Was Trump just simply conning everybody? But this was always Bush and Cheney. There was never anything else. Hey, it's just Bush and Cheney, but you put a little bit of different window dressing, but everything is the same. I don't know, because during his first term, he did maintain a certain caution. Now, maybe that's because he was running for re-election and he had to worry about the re-election. But nonetheless, he did make moves, desultory moves to leave Syria, moves to leave Afghanistan. He didn't accomplish them, but he made some desultory move. He made desultory moves to improve relations with Russia, um, and even when it came to Israel, he kind of didn't exactly embrace Netanyahu's agenda during his first term. So this is a very different agenda that he's pursuing in the second term, and it certainly has nothing to do with what he originally was about, which is, hey, We got to get out of these wars, particularly wars in the Middle East, and focus on problems at home.
It's just remarkable. He has embraced it. You see, this is sometimes when I think, you and I, when we were studying the Soviet Union, and there was this obsession with Stalin's personality.
Right.
There was a few of them that just made a whole career out of it, and which would mean, putting much more focus on a person's personal outlook because of their experience, and less on communist ideology and the longue durée of Russian history. It just that, in Trump's case, because it's so about him. Um, this is the way he wants to be a warrior. And this, he I guess he likes the Pete Hegseth and his nonsense. The warrior class.
Right.
Lethality. I've never heard that word used
Right. No,
very.
I think
All and it seems to me that pumps him up. I
yeah,
don't know.
I agree, and that is a part of definitely a part of his personality makeup. The sort of he wants to be a warrior. The problem was that he's a draft dodger, and if you're a draft dodger, you can't really be a warrior. And he was a draft dodger. He got out of serving in Vietnam. Everyone had different ways. The National Guard. That was always, if you had lots
I
of,
had different
I
priorities.
had different priorities. Oh yeah, I was in a graduate school program.
I'm
Well,
thinking of Dick Cheney, everybody.
exactly, Dick Cheney, but he wasn't. Newt Gingrich also graduate program. So that got his Trump's was got the whatever the spur in my foot, whatever that is. It's some medical
It
issue.
didn't stop him becoming president.
And you watch him walk. He's always. I've never seen any problem in his walking, but he got out of it. So as often happens, whether it's Lindsey Graham and Newt Gingrich and everyone, the most belligerent people are always the ones who manage to get out of, serving in the military themselves. So nothing surprising here, but I do think that is very much a part of his makeup.
Well, but another element that we know about his personality and behavior, he has this drive to dominate.
Yeah,
And I think that is also expressed here,
yeah,
domination.
right.
Um, the first thing I put out on Twitter is that the Board of Peace has started its first war. Okay. Yeah, but I mean,
That's a good
these
spectrum.
are, these are some of the issues that, because we're just doing the roughest of roughest intros to all of this, because this is huge. Okay. So, Board of Peace, what the hell happens to that?
I
Okay.
don't know what happens there. Yeah, that's what
I'm
happens.
going to be also looking at Israel making land grabs in Syria and in Lebanon. Okay. As this is going on, the IDF, they'll be busy during this time as well.
Right,
Um,
right, yeah.
But I think the ultimate question is it what will this do for Trump in the present and his legacy? And I think this is the fulcrum in which everything is going to be understood.
I think that I think it's definitely going to that the sort of the MAGA issue, that whole issue, I think is just that's it. You just can't do it. You can't you can't step in the same river twice. I mean, you can't you did this, you made this whole pitch that somehow this is going to be a different Republican Party. We're not going to have any more of this neocon. And then when you've done this, an even more extreme version of this, then I don't know where does someone like J.D. Vance now go? I mean, what's he got to say?
Oh, Marco has got to be just okay.
Exactly. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
but also, if we're looking at through the prism of domestic politics, where are the Democrats
that's
on
right.
this, George?
Well, the Democrats doing their
Who are
usual thing
just
is
kind of remarkably kind of quiet,
very
aren't
quiet.
they? Or
They're
just
essentially
kind of, well,
they're
they had
waiting.
it coming. They had it coming.
That's it. Exactly. So they're watching and waiting. If it goes wrong, hey, it's
Hey,
Trump's. It's Trump. It's Trump's war. We don't support Trump's war. That's what they did with Bush and Cheney. They kind of basically supported the invasion, and then when things they started going wrong, it's hey, it's Bush's war. It has nothing to do with us. So that's exactly what they're doing. This the calculation that they're making now. So no, there's no principal position to be had other than the usual few people like Ro Khanna, Thomas Massey, but everyone else they're just watching and waiting, making their calculation. AOC, where's AOC?
She's worried about Taiwan. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, but what's going to happen now to the Tucker Carlsons of this world? Okay, because I think Tucker's now more popular than ever before. I mean, just in this stratosphere. Okay, but he lost this debate.
Well, he lost, but that's an interesting one. I mean, obviously that's a big subject we could talk about on another occasion. But this could be an opening for Tucker Carlson then, because
I know George
talk
keeps
about this, and
going. Hey, I think it's a smart. I think it's
no,
very.
no,
I mean,
no.
I'm more skeptical,
Yeah, I
but
think I think it's the chances are a little distant. However, given how discredited JD Vance is, I think the mantle, if there is going to be some kind of an anti-war movement within the GOP, this could be the moment for Tucker. But what he has to do is he has to really distance himself from Trump. That's because at the moment he's still somehow always
well, no, this is it. This is it. I like him. He's my friend.
he's my
He's
friend.
distancing from the policies. But George, I
But he
mean,
was on the other night. He was on the other night. He was talking to this Clayton Morris, who used to work for him. And Clayton Morris said, "Oh, this is a done deal. Trump is obviously going to attack Iran." And Tucker said, "No, no, 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 no. I don't think he's made up his mind yet. I don't think it's a done deal yet." But so Tucker's always willing to give Trump the benefit of the doubt, and that's fine. But now there's no reason for him to give Trump the benefit of the doubt.
yeah, and see, this is one of these exceptions because for the most part, big money has big influence in
Mm-hmm.
politics. Okay, they work together. Okay, but this is a case where it may not be so simple because if there were a primary today, Tucker would win.
I think so.
I mean, I mean, I could see a draft Tucker movement.
I think so. I think
I,
so
I,
too.
I seriously think that it's possible. Okay, because the whole MAGA spiel is just so discredited. I mean, it's embarrassing.
No,
It's shameful and
because
also
without question, there is that movement within the GOP. It's always been there. Pat Buchanan harnessed it. Ron Paul did, but neither of them had either the resources or the charisma that Trump had. Um, and Trump used it very cynically. But Tucker does have the resources. Tucker, he has a huge platform. He's very personable. He's a great communicator. I think if he put his mind to it, I think he could become quite a serious force within the
well,
GOP.
the if anyone needs any evidence, that interview with Mike Huckabee,
Hmm.
that that that's going to be remembered for a very long time because Tucker distinguished himself finally,
Right,
clearly,
right.
no doubt about it where he stands. And I mean, I remember watching it, and I'd watch it live and anything. I'd watch it like a day and a half later. And even as I was watching, it was going up tens of thousands of
Oh, yeah,
of views. And when I was watching it,
yeah.
the numbers boom, 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 like that. I've never seen anything like that. Okay.
That's no question. That's
Okay. Okay. So what George and I did here, we wanted to jump in. Of course, we're observing things that are going on here, but we're going to have a lot of conversations moving forward. And I think we've just in a very short amount of time, we've seen the almost infinite number of threads going in all kinds of
right,
different
right, exactly.
directions.
And things I think obviously in the coming hours and days are going to clarify themselves. So we this is the first draft of the first draft of history, but
The
things are going
thing
to
is
change.
that There very often in these times, Russia and Iran are compared. All you have to do is kick down the door and the roof will fall in. Okay, we've heard that. Well, good to see. We're going to
We'll
see
see.
that.
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see what that proposition being tested. At this point in time, Iran is never as strong as you think, and it's probably never as weak as you think. So you should be very careful.
That's
Okay,
right.
because what we're seeing, in my opinion, is totally reckless.
Yeah,
All right, we're going to leave it there, everybody. A lot ahead. George and I will be meeting tomorrow, virtually, of course, twice. And then if the internet gremlins don't get me, of course, our Monday live
right,
stream
live stream.
at 10 o'clock
Exactly.
Eastern.
Exactly. Live stream. And of course, the dog said, yeah, we had plans for this Saturday. We weren't planning to do any, damn work. We're working all the time. We're planning to rest. Since since they weren't able to rest this Saturday, they want extra remuneration. So they say, yeah, our sleep was disturbed, so
And
we want
no thin gruel, no more thin
compensation.
gruel.
That's right. That tip jar, to put more into that tip jar. So we're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology. And, we'll try not to disturb the dogs too much. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye-bye.